guys, it's Mike Five from Lights and Lights, and this week on the Inner Sleeve podcast we're asking the question, are bands just brands now really? With all the content we're asked to produce and all the selling we have to do, are we just an extended marketing department of a creative output that we once thought might be fun to get some mates together and play some tunes? Have we turned into corporate shills, or is all of that nonsense? And actually, all bands have always had a logo and an idea to print some t-shirts and some CDs, and it doesn't have to be corporate, and actually it's very much the Black Flag mentality of, you know, doing your own thing, living your dream. I don't know, all I know is we say bands and brands a lot, and that gets quite confusing. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Thanks for listening. Please do hit subscribe if you do, and tell your mates, because often they love it too. Cheers. So this week on the Inner Sleeve, we are discussing the incredibly important topic, are bands and artists just brands now? And I'm struggling to say bands and brands and make them separate things. But is your band a brand, or is it more than a brand? Is it a band? Geyser, would you like to answer that limerick?
I think the prevailing advice now to bands is to treat yourself like a brand. I see more and more and more of this all the time. And the idea that you are somehow, you're more than the music, and you are a look, and you are a way of being. You have to identify your sound with a particular prevailing emotion to figure out where you fit into the current market, and where, you know, you have to have signifying colors and a recognizable logo, and all this kind of shit that essentially just drives you crazy if you're any kind of artist whatsoever and have any kind of like artistic sensibilities. It just sort of sucks your soul a little bit, really. And yet you can also see the immense power of branding with bands like, for example, I mean, somebody like Oasis or somebody like Guns N' Roses, you know, very easily identifiable kind of images that immediately connect you to the music. Yeah, all of that, you can see it working at the kind of highest, most successful level. So therefore, we are taught by many of the same gurus, shall we call them, that we were talking about in the last episode, who feed into the music scene, that you should think of yourself, even if you're a solo artist, even perhaps especially if you're a solo artist, you should think of yourself like a brand thinks of themselves, and you should think about positioning, and you should think about the integrity of your brand and how to protect it, and how to place it in context with other brands in a similar niche, and, you know, all of this kind of marketing stuff, which isn't completely irrelevant, but is definitely not the whole picture. Because in my view, the people who have the most powerful sorts of effect on you because of their music have a certain kind of like ineffable quality, something that you can't quite put your finger on, right? That isn't just easily replicatable. Is replicatable a word, or is it replicable? I can't remember. But anyway, sounds like one of is one of you playing a synth in the background or something?
No, I just
you get bored of listening to me talk, aren't you, Grim?
Well, I kicked my guitar a little, and it made.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That's it. And now you're turning it into a full-blown track. That's the thing, isn't it?
You know what? If you get any more doll, Gozer, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but if it just leads to more inspired Grim 17 songs, isn't that a price you're willing to pay?
See, I insult you and you come back with these compliments. I don't know.
I know.
I don't know how to fucking take this, man. Just
You know,
That's
insult
it.
me back, damn it.
you
I
know
like
that
to keep you
Lerman.
constantly wrong-footed, Grim. That's what it is.
Do you remember the Baz Luhrmann thing about everyone should wear sunscreen, which is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of like a sort of monologue over a piece of music? Perhaps the sort of dissonant Grim 17 version of that could be Grim picking his guitar while Ghost speaks about brands and bands.
Yeah, I reckon we could probably make that work, to be honest.
That's a summer hit right there.
I sort of
Yeah.
thought my track "Making the Man's Clothes" was kind of that, and it was
It's a
kind
bit
of my
like
version of that
that,
anyway. Yeah, but yeah.
But yeah, so
Anyway, sorry.
how do you two feel about this? That's the thing. Who wants to take it?
Grim, after you.
Yeah. I with stuff like this, I just think it has always been thus. You know, it's always kind of been that way. You think about any band, you know, even you go back as far as Robert Johnson. You know, the look, the guitar, the sound, but that story of him meeting the devil at the crossroads.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's on some level is branding. You know, it persists, and the best stories do. And then you go to someone like Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. He was constantly thinking about his branding and the way he portrayed himself. And yeah, okay, fair enough. It was anti corporate. You know, so on some level it was supposed to be anti-branding, but it was still branding. You know, he was still branding himself on some level and thinking about those things and constantly thinking about the stories that he would tell. You know, even that song "Under the Bridge," not underneath or no, something in the way. You know, it starts off with him talking about underneath the bridge, and there's a whole story about that, about him, you know, living underneath a bridge at one point, but which we know was bullshit. But it was a story that he told, and it became like a myth surrounding all that. So I think branding it's always been part of it. Because part of the thing about it is as well is we're talking about, you know, pop music. We're talking about relatively simplistic music in general, and it retreads a lot of the same boards, and it's you know, on some level you have to sell it based on who you are. You have to sell it based on what it is that you bring to those songs that nobody else can. And you know, I know there's an argument to be made there against exceptionalism, and if it's not them, it will just be someone else. You know, creativity abhors a vacuum and all that type of stuff. But the fact is, you know, if I think about any of the acts that I really love, if I think about someone like Tom Waits, part of the reason I love Tom Waits isn't just strictly because of the music. It's like you know, if I'd never known who he was and I just listened to his music, I'm not sure it would have meant as much, you know, because on some level it means so much because of what I know about the man, because I know about the story behind him, because I know about what it is he's trying to get across and what he puts himself into the music. And that's not him. Again, that's the thing. It's not him. And if you read interviews with Tom Waits, he talks about this. It's not me. It's a character called Tom Waits. It's a character that shares my name, but it's not me. I get to leave that character there and go home to my wife and children and have my normal life. And you don't get that. The audience doesn't get that normal life. They just get this character that shares my name. And that's what it is. That's all musicians. That's all performers. That's all creatives, especially in this milieu, and that is in itself sort of branding, isn't it? Do you know? I think there are absolute examples of it getting like monstrously out of control, and that those examples, I think, are more and more prevalent now. Absolutely, I do. You know, like I look at a lot of, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to fucking say it, hip hop. A lot of hip hop and R&B music the music seems to be an afterthought. The music is a byproduct of branding. It's just another advertisement for a brand. And the brand is these individuals, these human beings, which I don't know. I'm sorry. You can't even use fucking Kanye West as an example anymore because he's gone so fucking insane. But on some,
insane.
but
you think about Drake and what's his face that are always fighting. Like the whole fight is much more interesting than the music, right?
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah, and that is in and of itself sort of just selling. It's all in an effort to sell more stuff with their name on it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's the point of it, and I think that is much more prevalent. And we can go into the fucking ins and outs of how we can entirely understand why that is happening and why, we do, who am I to fucking question that these people shouldn't want to have the success and all that, their type of thing. But it does cheapen, I think, on some level, how blatant that is does to an extent cheapen what music is supposed to be about and what it really means to people in the basis form. But yeah, in summation, it has always been thus. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think the difference, though, you say it's always been thus, and you're right, and everything you said is right. The difference is now we call it branding. Which I don't like. That's just corporate bullshit, right? Okay. So bands have to have a logo. Well, yeah, because you want everyone to wear the t-shirt and tell their friends about it. Like, fucking that's what Deadheads did in the Kiss Army, right? So yeah, we want them to have a t-shirt. We get that, but you don't have to call it branding. Like it's just but this is the thing. Everyone talks to you now because everyone can talk to you. That's the other irritating thing. I feel like I've done a lot of ranting in the last few episodes, but everyone can talk to you whether you want them to or not because they just appear on your screen. And everyone tells you about things like how to brand your band and all this kind of stuff. But the best kind of, you can do it in one of two ways, right? You go down the Kurt Cobain route and the Robert Johnson route, and it's quite authentic, and the Tom Waits route. It's authentic in the sense that it's a story that's close enough to the reality that you can believe in it, but you recognize that these are characters and these are narratives, and it's actually, trying to focus you in on the purpose of the music. The other way is to go like David Bowie and rebrand, or Madonna or whoever, rebrand yourself every 5 minutes. And that could be really successful and really, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong. I like Bowie. I like the Frozen era of Madonna. I thought the late 90s was a big hit for her. But whereas I didn't like the 80s stuff. But it's you can do those things and do it in a very deliberate way. But do we have to call it brand? Like, do we have to make it into this? Like, it's almost like when we've got a brand, and here are our values, and here's our goal for the next 3 to 5 years, and here's our strategy. I'm not trying to run $1 billion corporation. I mean, I suppose I'm trying to, but I'm not successfully running $1 billion corporation. I'm in an independent band. And actually, I just want to go out, and we all have parts of our identity. Like, I prefer to play a Les Paul, and people probably recognize me more with a Les Paul than if I played any of the other guitars that I own. But I own several Les Pauls, so I'm more familiar, more recognizable with that. And people have that image of me, and that's part of what I look like and who I am. I went through a phase years ago when I was younger of wearing stupid hats on stage. Like, we all do stuff to kind of make ourselves stand out. Good, bad, or stupid in my case, quite often. But, the Rolling Stones have got a great brand. Does it mean they're a shitter band for it? No. But the brand of the Rolling Stones now compared to what it started out as, now it's a big corporate marketing machine that sits behind a set of lips. In the 70s, it was, hey, this is a cool thing, and people like it and they seem to buy it. And I do think we lose some of the innocence of, like, the kind of DIY brand is much more interesting to me. Like, I'm much more interested in people like, what was the guy from the Buzzcocks? I always forget his name. But people who just go, fuck it, we'll do it on our own, and just create their own stuff and put their own stuff together. There's that brilliant story about New Order. So Blue Monday, every time they produced, because they did that all themselves as Factory Records, every time Factory Records produced a batch of the records, say they sold them for, I don't know, £1 a record, it cost them like £1.10 to make each record, right? So although it was one of the most successful songs of all time, it lost the most money of all. It almost made the record label go bust. The record label did eventually go bust because they put so much effort into, I can't remember what the thing was. It was the record looked like a cassette or something. It had a kind of visual identity, right? And they focused all this stuff on it, but it was done in a really DIY way. And then it hit number one and they went, oh shit, we lose money every time we produce one of these. But it was kind of, well, who cares, right? Because we're getting something out of it. Whereas now brand is very tightly controlled. It's like, and we have it. I struggle with it on the label. I'm trying to revamp our website. By the time this comes out, it might have been revamped. And it's like, I don't want to sound like a prick when I talk about the website, but I do want it to have a purpose. And I do want it to have I do want it to use certain colors and whatever, because I want to kind of get that identity across. But I'm trying to do it in an authentic, independent way. I don't have $1 million marketing team behind me trying to make me do these things. But I do want people to relate to it. But equally, I don't want to tell anyone. I might tell you guys. I don't want to tell anyone else necessarily about that, apart from the millions of people that listen to this podcast, of course, now. But it's not, I'm not shouting about my brand. I'm just going, hey, this is us. Hope you like it. We're going to put some pink on the website or whatever. Like, it's, yeah. So the brand thing annoys me because, yes, it's important that you have an identity, but I think identity is stronger than brand. I think authenticity, especially in the independent music scene, is stronger than the idea of brand. So, yeah, we want stuff that is recognizable and helps us stand out and whatever, but it just has to be authentic, real, human. We're supposed to be human beings talking about human issues, writing about the human condition in whatever way we're writing about it and sharing that with the world. So I felt like it just needs to be the lens on it, not this corporate branding bullshit, basically.
I think I was going to say some of what you've just said actually, and you've put it really articulately. But I think that the issue now is that everybody who puts out any kind of, and I hate the word, but content of any kind, is being encouraged to think of themselves as a brand first and foremost, right? And so instead of a lot of stuff just sort of evolving organically, like a lot of this stuff has done historically in the kind of music world, right, where your sort of, I know we keep saying brand, but the marketing, the promotion around you is basically an amplification of the kind of vibe you were creating anyway, right? Yeah. Nowadays, people are being like, they're sitting there and going, right, what do I want my brand colors to be, before they've really thought about what the music's going to sound like. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's that kind of thinking that I rally against, because I always believe you should put the music first, right? And then everything else should come from that. And so I sort of object to the brandification of everything, because once you start thinking in those terms, once again it forces you into a place of like neutrality, right, and safety, because you don't want to be too controversial and you don't want to push yourself in too much of a way, because then you might alienate this segment of the potential market for your music or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And as soon as you start thinking in those terms, all of your like artistic freedoms start getting curtailed, and to a certain extent, at a certain point, yes, we all have to kind of reckon with these concepts and these ideas, and if we want to progress and move on and get more successful or whatever, we will have to engage with this and we will have to put some thought into it. But should it be the first thing that you're thinking about? I say no. Absolutely not. Music comes first, then figure out the rest of that stuff.
I completely agree. And the thing is as well, just to build on that, right? People will brand anything. Like you can brand water, for fuck's sake. Like you can go and pick up some water from a puddle outside your house, right? Stick it in a bottle, call it Astra Springs and say it's pure, celestial, and infinite. And then you can come up with a whole load of bullshit about it, like the why is our water so good? The mystical purity of the cosmos and the untouched beauty of the Earth's hidden springs, and it's sourced from deep, unspoiled puddles outside Goes a Good Speed's house. You can talk absolute bollocks for ages. Come up with a logo, probably got like a moon on it, stars, or something, right? Come up with a bottle design that looks slightly different to all the other bottles of water out there. Maybe make it like midnight blue and silver and stuff like that, right? And you can put some like nice you can literally brand water. It's fucking water. Like, do you know what I mean? And there are adverts, like I'm taking the piss, but there are adverts for Evian. I'm not being funny. It tastes the same as all the other fucking water. It comes from the same place. And yet we're able to market this. And I think the reason I'm saying all this is we should not be thinking about music in the same way we think about bottled water. Do you know what I mean? That is the thing that is wrong with society. Music is a thing that is right with society. We should really be focusing on exactly what you're saying, the music, the artists. And then, yes, there are some things that help people identify with us and whatever. You know, I'd be really surprised if, you know, some metal band turned up and they weren't all wearing black or something. Like, I get it. Like, there's an identity and a connection that people have in that. But please don't be a fucking dick about it, is the message that I want to get to people. Like,
unless you're that band Oakley Dokley.
Who the hell are Oakley Dokley?
They're a metal band. They're an American metal band that style themselves exclusively on Ned Flanders. So they're all dressed as Ned Flanders. Yeah.
That is genius, to be fair. That is genius, yeah. But that's like those bluegrass artists that cover punk songs and stuff like that, or AC/DC songs or whatever. That's niche, but it's genius.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
And it
Niche
brings us back
is
to
fine.
The Simpsons.
Yes.
Corporate bullshit, not so much.
Is there a band? Is there a band? What are they called? It's like Nick and the Cages or something like that, and they're all dressed as different eras of Nick Cage, and they've all got Nick Cage masks on.
I haven't heard of them.
You've not heard of them? It's definitely a thing. I didn't just hallucinate it, but anyway, check them out.
I saw a great this is now 5.5 years ago when Dr. Bones was over here in the UK, and it was my birthday that week. We went out to a punk gig and we saw a great band whose name I forget, but I'll try and find and put in the notes. And they all went on stage wearing balaclavas, and it added something different. And they were like a really hardcore, all their songs are 30 seconds long and I've got no idea what they're about.
I'm not surprised because they probably just ran out of oxygen after 30 seconds and
they were
around and gasp.
One of them jumped in the crowd and they were very sweaty.
Balaclavas were sealed?
No,
I think
have you ever worn a balaclava? Like,
well, yeah, I have, but you don't run out of oxygen. You get very warm, but you don't run out of oxygen.
Yeah, but you get very hot on stage, and wearing a balaclava is gonna,
Yeah, but the point is, they had an identity, but I did not come away from that going, I love their brand. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between brand and identity. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Grim, when was the last time you wore a balaclava, Grim? What were you doing? Can you talk about it?
Well, all I'll say is, we only needed to get lucky once. She had to get lucky every time. If you know, you know.
It just gets very cold in Derry. That's all that people need to know.
Fucking does too. This is supposed to be fucking spring here. Like, the branding thing. Yeah, I suppose. I think we pretty well covered that one.
I think we've done brands quite well there.
It did make me think of another Simpsons moment, which is when the kids had their own news show, and Bart does all the human interest stories, and there's the TV producer lady that comes in and says, that he's going to be the co-anchor, and Lisa's dismayed with this, and she says, "Yeah, but he's got zip, he's got pizzazz, he's got whatever you want to call it. It spells moolah in the back." And that's kind of what just the word, when you said about the word branding, that's exactly what it is, isn't it? It's meaningless fucking marketing speak.
That's it. Yeah, it's just bullshit.
Also, we have to remember that where does branding originally come from? What did we originally brand? Cattle with a fucking iron that we heated up, literally burned the fucking logo into their skin. So yeah, maybe we don't want to try and invite that comparison.
I mean, you say that, but you've got a Tom Waits tattoo. Is it that different?
No, it is not at all. You know, I'm sure. I would bet money that Tom Waits would be fucking horrified by my Tom Waits tattoo.
I thought you were going to say you bet money that Tom Waits has got a Grim 17 tattoo.
Oh, that'd be amazing. That's so good.
That's
so good.
brilliant.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Thanks for listening to the Inner Sleeve podcast. If you like what you hear, please do subscribe and check out headlightsandwhitelines.com to find out more about Lights and Lines, your favourite independent record label. Cheers, guys.